Our guest in this half hour is Kimberly Scott, the publisher of DemList, an all-around Democratic Party expert. Kim, thanks for joining us from the convention in Chicago.
It is electric. It is unbelievable. I can't begin to tell you. There's so much energy and so much excitement around Harris and Waltz and the ticket. You can just feel it in the air. And everybody's coming in. So we have, like I said, there's celebrities. There's going to be a big event with John Legend, Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Uh, we have Connie Britton. There's a host of celebrities who are here. Everybody wants to be a part of it. So for each night of the convention.
That's why we have you on today, Kim.
So
you're a part of it.
So DemList does the convention calendar. It's a free resource to everyone. You can sign up at DemList.com and have access to the convention calendar. There are over 400 events on the calendar, and we think by the time we finish the convention, there'll actually be 500. So you can go in and see everything that's going on each night, along with the gavel in. So tonight, there are 4 themes for each night. Tonight is For the People, which is about, well, Donald Trump, puts himself first. Democrats are fighting for the people. This will be President Biden's probably one of the most significant points in his career, and an ability to reach the people and tell them why he thinks Kamala Harris is going to be an excellent vice president. There's a long lineup of speakers. Each night you have elected officials, you have labor officials. Lee Saunders from AFSCME, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson is going to kick off the night with the welcome. We have Jamie Harrison from the DNC, Liz Shuler from AFSCME, Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, and then Hillary Clinton is going to be speaking this evening as well.
What's the theme and the main speakers for Tuesday night?
Tuesday night is a bold vision for America's future. So the race isn't just a choice between 2 candidates, a choice between 2 very different visions of America. And in that night, tomorrow night, will be Governor J.B. Pritzker, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, will be doing the welcoming remarks. Then former President Obama will come on, along with First Lady Michelle Obama, who's probably still the most popular person in the country. Second gentleman, Doug Emhoff. And then they'll do the roll call. So the DNC already has had their vote. They had to have it in advance for different reasons. And they, about a week ago. So the members, the 4,000 plus members of the DNC have already officially nominated Harris and Waltz. And so what they're going to have is a ceremonial roll call tonight. And so you still get the feel of that and the excitement of them accepting the nomination.
Let me ask you a couple of questions here. First, if for our viewers and listeners who want to follow the convention proceedings, how do they get access to the DemList calendar?
Again, you just go to www.demlist.com. I can actually show you. I know we don't normally do things, but this is the calendar. So there are at least 40 events, and it goes through the night. It'll tell you where the speakers are, how to access things. Most of the events are actually closed, but it's about being on the calendar and be a part of this incredibly historic event. But it doesn't matter where you go. I am at the Marriott Marquis, which is one of the host hotels, and where staff, allied groups are here, and some of labor. The delegates are all spread across 8 different hotels, a little more condensed, I think, originally for security purposes. And then the perimeter is now unset. There was a softer perimeter, now we're in the hard perimeter. The protests are going on. They're not as large as originally expected. Originally, people were saying 40,000. It's now been adjusted to about 20. And they are and this is all on the calendar as well, and what we've sent out, there is a map where they are outside the perimeter. It was something that was negotiated with the city. They actually tried to sue the city to come in closer. And so that will be going on in that area throughout the convention. They started yesterday. but it's really been peaceful. Um, there haven't been any problems. It's and I think respectful, and so it's uh, not the fear that anybody
Okay.
expected that we're so concerned.
What's on the agenda for Wednesday night?
Okay, Wednesday night. Wednesday night is a fight for our freedoms. Vice President Harris has spent her entire career fighting for Americans' freedom. So the speakers are going to be former President Bill Clinton. There's been a lot of events around Clinton today. There is a big Clinton reunion for the administration. There's also a Biden reunion. Pelosi is Speaker Emeritus. Nancy Pelosi is going to speak. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, and then Governor Tim Walz will deliver his presidential acceptance speech. And then each night, aside from what's on so the gavel comes in each night. It's like 5:15. Tomorrow will be, I think, 5:30. It goes a little bit later. The program will go to about 11 o'clock, and then there's a host of parties. Uh, Post gavel, they'll go on till 3 o'clock in the morning. And I said, I can't express to you the excitement that's here. It's like a different energy. I don't know that any of us expected this when Biden stepped aside, but it's evident in the millions of dollars that have been raised. Thousands and thousands of new volunteers in every state, and particularly battleground states, because we know that there are really 7 states that will come down to how we win this race, how Democrats win this race.
Let me ask you this question. Well, first of all, an observation. You can see the energy in the national polls. Last week, I saw a couple of national polls that measured enthusiasm among voters. And at this point, Democrats are actually more enthusiastic about Kamala Harris's candidacy than Republicans are about Donald
Yes.
Trump's. Which leads me to problem. It seems to me, as a political observer, Harris has got off to a rip-roaring start. Within a day or 24 hours of President Biden stepping aside, she raised millions of dollars, secured her hold on the Democratic nomination, and later on, she made a very popular vice presidential pick in Tim Walz. All that Donald Trump got from his convention was a lousy J.D. Vance T-shirt, and I'm glad to see that the enthusiasm is reflected in the convention proceedings. Uh, the other thing I wanted to ask you, Kim, is all this time while Kamala Harris has been picking up steam, Donald Trump has been leaking steam. He's been horrible, and he's made a few press conferences. He's not really campaigning. He was on X with Elon Musk. He did a disastrous press conference, hunkered down in his Mar-a-Lago bunker. What's the problem with Trump?
The rambling. Well, we've always known this, but I think it's affecting him. I think he knows that he's going to lose. I mean, the one press conference where he talked about windmills and hundreds of birds dying. I mean, I think Republicans are desperate to try to keep him on message, but as we know, that's impossible. During the Republican convention, he had an opportunity after the assassination attempt to show people that he was a new man. It was an amazing opportunity, actually. And then the first 20 minutes, he was on message. He talked about unity, and then he went off for the next.
Kim, we're going to have to continue this discussion because we're taking a very quick break, but we'll be back with more of Deadline DC with Brad Bannon and our guest, Kimberly Scott, live from Chicago, the publisher of DemList. We'll be back right after this very quick message. Welcome back to Deadline DC with Brad Bannon. Our guest in this half hour is the publisher of DemList, Kimberly Scott, who's coming to us live from the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. By the way, I want to mention that we're going to continue this discussion about the Democratic National Convention. Kim, what's the big festivities or Thursday night when Kamala Harris gives her acceptance speech? What do we expect to hear from the newly minted Democratic nominee?
And we just talked before about that there's a theme for each night. Thursdays is our future. And so it's America can't afford to put Donald Trump back in the White House before a second Trump term could even be more dangerous and more extreme than the first one. So let's see. I can't even. Every night it's like packed with speakers, celebrities. So Harris will basically close out the convention on Thursday night with her acceptance speech for the nomination. I should say the convention itself, the convention center is unprecedented in its design. They've never had anything like this. There is also a platform for the first time in history for influencers, content creators. And so there are actually 200 selected content creators in a specific platform so they can get a 360-degree view of the convention, but to reach people, particularly younger generation, online on social media, and let them experience it as it's happening from a very unique position. And you have
let me ask you this, Kim. When the vice president gives her acceptance speech Thursday night, do you think she'll break new ground and go, set some differences between her and President Biden, or is it just going to be a speech where she reaffirms her commitment to continue Joe Biden's good work?
Well, the thing is that she really has been a partner in this administration. She is has always been a little more in the background, and so a lot of America is really just getting to know her. And from my perspective, she's a new person. I mean, I look at her differently now. The energy that comes out, she is all over the place. And then this dynamic between Waltz and Harris is perfect. I mean, they just are symbiotic. Waltz was a perfect choice. He was a teacher for 20 years, a coach, a veteran, a medal honoring veteran, in sharp contrast to J.D. Vance. And he's incredibly humorous. He's just very witty. And so he has been able to use that to attack Trump. So he is of the two of them, he has been the one who is attacking Trump and Vance more frequently. But I think you're going to see a new Kamala Harris, one that the public is not before, and will lay out the vision for what her administration is going to be. But it's building on what they did together with Biden. And Biden will go down as one of the greatest presidents in history. On the books, in reality, he has accomplished more than I would say Johnson, or maybe even going back to FDR. And so he leaves in a very graceful position. And the man is so beloved and by everybody in the Democratic.
Jim, I'm going to have to interrupt you again. We're going to bring back our radio audience. We'll be back with more of Deadline DC and our guest, Kim Scott, the publisher of DemList, right after this very quick break. Welcome back to Deadline DC with Brad Bannon. And I want to remind our radio listeners who just rejoined us after a short break that if you want to watch us as well as listen to us, you can watch us at twitter.com/Brad Bannon, on facebook.com/Deadline DC with Brad Bannon, /videos. Kim, this is my assessment where we are at the presidential race. Our ticket, the Democratic campaign was in the doldrums until about 6 weeks ago. Kamala Harris came along and quickly rejuvenated it. And one of the reasons why I think she's been so successful is she's been very aggressive dealing with Trump. And sometimes I thought President Biden, he was not aggressive enough, and she's much more aggressive, which I think is badly needed. Now, I think Trump is having a hard time reacting to this big change. He's been, very slow-footed since Harris became the potential nominee. And because of that, there's been a big swing in the national polls, whereas Joe Biden was running several points behind Trump in the battleground states, which are really the only states that count in the Electoral College. Harris now is basically running a very close race to Trump in the battleground states. Now, the question that my observation is, I think at some point Trump's going to regain his footing because Republicans are telling him he's spending too much time airing political grievances instead of talking about issues that Americans care about. And my guess is at some point he comes back hitting very hard. And my question is Vice President Harris ready to deal with the inevitable Trump onslaught?
I question whether he actually will come back. I said there's so much
Okay.
pressure on him now by all of the Republican leadership. It always has to stay on message. And he has not adhered to that at all. And so I don't know, quite honestly, if that's going to actually happen. But if it is, Harris and Walz are absolutely prepared for it. This is a much more dynamic campaign. They have been aggressive from the beginning. The first speech when Walz did in Philadelphia by himself, he attacked Trump right off the bat and Vance. He's really the perfect foil, and he's played that role very well. But she is. You can see the enthusiasm. She is, and there's only actually 1 year difference between the two of them. But she has. I think she's been aggressive in her criticisms of Trump, but she really has also stayed the message of the accomplishments of what they've done for the last 4 years and what they're going to do in the next 4 years. So I'm not entirely confident that we will see what was a Donald Trump 4 years ago. He really is unhinged, and that's been evident. And I think J.D. Vance is trying to compensate for some of that, but it's ended up to be a very, very poor choice for Trump's vice president. He really needed someone more solid, more experienced. Um, but back to the convention, it is, again, you can walk through any of these hotels, you can see celebrities walking around. Um, the uh, and then people have, when they get in, you have to have a credential. So there are different levels of credentials. You have, this is actually the arena, all highlighted by colors. And so that's also a scramble. You see people exchanging credentials for this or this. We will actually be on the floor tonight. DemList will be, and we'll be posting pictures and messages on social media. We'll also be sending out at least 2 columns today to update on people on everything that's going on. But I think, and this is a beautifully produced show. Steven Spielberg has actually been a consultant to this. So people can expect to see what is really a very electric, exciting show this evening. And I think every night. And then it's a late night, like there's a John Legend's performing tomorrow night. It's
Ah,
hosted by Governor Pritzker.
let me ask you this question. We talked about this at the start of the segment. The president's going to give a speech tonight. It must be kind of a bittersweet night for him. He probably expected to be speaking Thursday night and accepting nomination again, but he's speaking tonight as sort of a valedictory to the Democratic Party before many people who worked very hard to push him aside uh, from the ticket. What do you think is going through Joe Biden's mind giving a speech tonight?
Well, I think, obviously this has been, I would say, painful to people who really support Biden. And like I said, I have a great admiration for everything he's accomplished. But this is the stark contrast between Biden and Trump. Biden did what was right for the ticket. this man has dedicated his whole life to the American people and truly loves the American people. It was very public effort to push him aside, and um, and I think there were several people who had played key roles in that. I think in the end, Nancy Pelosi was probably the one who finally was able to accomplish that. But once he made that decision, once he sacrificed for the American people, uh, then I think that is something that he now knows he's taking on a different role. This will be all about passing on the torch to the next generation and talking about Kamala Harris and Walz and what a great ticket they are and what they're going to do for the voters once they're in the White House. So I think you're going to see that. I think he'll be obviously very eloquent, but it will all be about the American people and the Democratic Party and the leadership that is going to be a part of the new White House.
Okay, let's switch to another topic. I lived in Minnesota for 3 years when I went to grad school at the University of Minnesota. Go Gophers! Go Golden Gophers! And when I was there, I learned about the expression Minnesota nice. And I think of that when I see Tim Walz, our newly minted vice presidential nominee. What has Tim Walz brought to the ticket?
Well, they've been a nice balance. Anytime you pick the vice president, you're not several priorities. One, the dynamic between the two people. That is essential. You have to be comfortable with them. You have to know that. Secondly, that is someone who is going to compliment you and compliment your talents, your experience. And Walz, again, I think is a perfect choice. He is very gregarious. He's extremely witty. He's got a tremendous background, and he have together the two of them. You can see like they're really enjoying this, and then has no inhibitions whatsoever about attacking Trump or Vance, and he's been very successful in that. So we put out something a week ago of all the Tim Walz little expressions, and he's the perfect dad. People looked at that, but he has the experience, and governors are the best presidents, actually, because they have been an administrator. They have governed, they have been responsible for line items in a budget. So that's a very important background to bring to the ticket.
Yeah, and I think he's been a great addition. By the way, you have some breaking news. Former Congressman George Santos pleaded guilty to 2 felonies in a federal fraud case today. So we won't have him to worry about anymore. Now, if he could only, maybe he'll get a cell with Donald Trump after the election is over.
And I don't know what the latest developments are on Trump's case, but he's been successful in having all of these postponed. I mean, this has been impeached twice. We're talking dozens of felony counts. A rapist. And yet the Republican Party has chosen him to represent them. And that, I think, will be reflected in the voting public. We will win this election.
Yep. Kim, I'm sorry, that's all the time we have today on Deadline DC with Brad Bannon. I want to thank Kimberly Scott, the publisher of DemList, who joined us live from the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. I also want to thank Bob Deans, the senior advisor to the Natural Resources Defense Council Action Fund, and of course, my crackjack executive producer, Mark Grimaldi. We'll be back with more of Deadline DC next Monday. Until then, stand tall and stay strong in these troubled and turbulent times.
And go to DemList.com for everything that's going on at the convention and a list of over 400 events.
Thank you very much, Kim, for your time. Enjoy the convention.
Oh, I absolutely will.
Good. Good for you.